Oh.
Here we are.
And we're
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the world's least awkward podcast and video show with me, Morgan, your host, and my beautiful and amazing assistant, Trisha. This homegirl has been behind the scenes for a long, we're probably coming up on 2 years. Yeah.
I think September we just passed 2 years.
Oh, happy anniversary. And tonight I'm really excited to share this interview with you guys because Trisha is a virtual assistant. And she has been doing a bunch of stuff online, with me, with other businesses, and she's also a physical therapist. So, yeah, just really excited to dive into the story. And if you have any questions while you're watching live, please leave a comment down below and we will get to them. Or if you're watching on the replay, same thing. So without further ado, Trisha, who are you? What do you do? And tell us about yourself.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Trisha. I am from South Jersey. I've been a PT for 8 years now, I think. Yeah, 8 years. I had to do some math there real quick. So right out of PT school, I joined on with a team in a subacute rehab facility and loved it. Had a great team. Had a couple of people in there that were really great mentors and everything. And then kind of worked my way up to senior physical therapist of the team, which was great. Loved everything about it. There were obviously some, weaknesses and things about, any setting of healthcare. Yeah. But I kind of always knew that my plan was when I had kids, I wanted to kind of pull back a bit. And so I had my first daughter in 2019. And so I went to part-time work. And in the process of all of that, kind of planning for that, was trying to figure out what I could do on the side, because obviously going from full-time to part-time, you need to make up for some stuff somewhere. And so I started looking at a bunch of different avenues, and I tried a few different things. I was doing transcription for a while, and that just was not worth the effort. Looked into a couple of things and came across virtual assistant, and just the fact that it was this huge, broad topic. Looked into some research on the Virtual Savvy Facebook group, which was super helpful, and just was like, all right, I'll try it. What's the worst that could happen? Joined the group. And I think that's where one of the Facebook groups that I was in, because one of the things they tell you is to join a bunch of Facebook groups for virtual assistant. And I came across your posting or something like that. Somehow we came into contact.
I was just trying to remember, and I don't remember how we met.
I don't know if it was
completely
like,
gone.
Hey, who's medical, whatever. Yeah. And that was one of the things I guess I should throw in there, was that I wanted to tie the two worlds together. And I didn't want to just be a virtual assistant for the sake of being a virtual assistant. I wanted to still keep my healthcare background. So I decided to be a virtual assistant for people in healthcare, because one of the most frustrating things for me as a PT was that I just wanted to do the job of a therapist, and I hated being pulled in so many different directions, and it pulled me away from what I wanted to do. So when I was like, fine, I'll do virtual assistant, and decided my goal for the job was to give healthcare workers the chance to do what they love. So met up with Morgan and started working with each other, back in 2019, I think, part-time. And then fast forward to COVID time, which was, super stressful, super fun in healthcare. And it was just becoming draining. And I knew that a change needed to happen. And especially that got really, the need became even greater, because I had my second daughter, and knew that I wanted to be full-time at home with both the kiddos then. So talked with Morgan, and we kind of figured out a way to kind of get me out there to find more clients and make it work. So yeah, I feel like that was a way description, but way too much. But
oh my gosh, no, that's great. Yeah. You've been doing this for a while now, and there are so many factors that go into starting to work for yourself, whatever you end up doing for yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of changes that can happen in the on your way to where you're going too. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And let's see. I was going to say, Trisha is the reason this podcast exists. Whenever whenever and whoever ends up listening to this when it becomes a podcast, the sole reason it's available is because of Trisha. So yeah, if anybody wants to send her a thank you note, you totally can. So I guess, maybe one question that I have, which I could, picture some other people maybe like wondering about. You're a physical therapist. I'm a physical therapist. I help therapists be their own, therapy practice. I guess maybe like tell us more about like why you chose to go into something non-clinical, rather than like using like therapy skills privately.
Yeah. So the ironic thing is, as I was a therapist, maybe 5 years ago at this point or longer, my dad kept going like, you should go into business for yourself and stuff. And I was like, never going to happen. Never.
Yeah.
Just the whole idea of handling insurance and stuff like freaked me out and everything. And so it was when it came time to try and figure out working from home and stuff, I still wanted to be home with the kids, and I couldn't really figure out. I'm definitely more of a hands-on, want to be in there with a patient. If I'm going to treat them, I wanted to be as hands-on as possible. So telehealth just wasn't, I didn't feel like I would be serving the patient best, at least for me. There are plenty of people who do telehealth and they rock at it. It just wasn't for me. So I wanted to try and find a different avenue. And so that's why I started researching all the different ways that, you can earn money from home. And nothing was really sitting well with me. Wasn't worth the effort. And it also bothered me that I wasn't doing something that had some clinical tie. So that's when, finding this, it was kind of the best of both worlds. I could be with my kiddos, I could have a flexible schedule and still serve people who were in healthcare. So, and I mean, and you and I have kind of started talking recently about some other avenues that I would want to take, possibly supporting healthcare and patients. So maybe something a little more clinical down the road, but for right now, this is great for my season. So
yeah, I love that. And that's like, honestly, I feel like one of the biggest things that I've learned, like doing all of this stuff is, and I don't know if it's just me or, like we go to school for such a long period of time and then you graduate, get licensed, get a job, and you're a staff clinician. And that's like kind of the end point, unless you decide to like go into management. It's just like the standard trajectory, I suppose, or into business for yourself or whatever. But like I had to like become okay with change and like understanding that there are going to be like different seasons of life, and like just because you commit to doing something right now doesn't mean that you have to do it forever,
right?
So yeah, I like that you put it that way. And like being a virtual assistant too, like it can translate to so many other things.
Oh my word. Yeah, I was so shocked when I came across it, and it was literally like, there are a ton of different niches and you can do a ton of different tasks with that. And I was like, this is endless, like literally no limits, and I can make it whatever I want. And you and I have even changed my roles with things. Like I came in as basic administration and minimal bookkeeping stuff, and that has changed drastically over the years, just by you showing me things. Basically. Which I can't stress this enough for people who aren't sure about virtual assistant. Like I came in with next to no know-how of softwares and stuff. Like it was like Morgan's a flippin' genius on software.
That's a nice way of putting it.
It's like every time it's like, hey, have you ever used this? No, I haven't, but sure, let's try it. Like, let's go YouTube this and find out and whatever. So, you learn stuff on the way and you find what you like and what you don't like. And so always changing.
Some of us have a lot of softwares they use. And change every 6 months. Don't do that to yourself. But yeah, I mean, like the positive of it is, like you said, like you get a lot of experience learning different things, and then like you can manage my business and take what you like for yourself. Notice things that you're like, wow, I can't believe she's doing this. I'm not gonna do that. And I also really like the other you said about whenever you're coming across something you don't know how to use, like you just look it up. Like there's so much information available on how to use everything that, like if, whoever's listening to this, if this is something that you've ever considered doing, or, even if you're just like scared to use software, like maybe you do things a lot like manually right now, you can basically type in how to use blank, whatever software on YouTube, and somebody will have a tutorial for you on how to use it.
100%. It's nuts. Like YouTube, Facebook, just the amount of groups that are out there of, you throw a question up there and not just the administrators, but I mean, kind of like your group, not just administrators, but anybody who's part of the group is answering questions and, offering support there. So everybody's learning.
So like you could literally start tomorrow with 0 skills and you'd be able to figure it out, which is super cool. There's definitely a lot you can do. And so like with this journey over the past couple of years and getting into working for yourself, I think kind of like overall, what have been some of the biggest challenges?
So biggest challenges have been the first thing was just having the confidence to do it. To be like, okay, I'm going from a steady PT job, something that I went to school for, something, that I've spent years getting good at, and leaving it to try something here. And I sort of took it cautiously in the sense that, I still had my full-time job when I started it. Actually, maybe I was part-time at the time. My timeline's getting all off. But, I was still working. I still had that steady. And I feel like you bring that up often in your, in your blogs and podcasts and whatever, that, you are able to have this, starting slow and what's the worst that can happen sort of thing. Just take that leap. And so that was, I think, the first thing was having the confidence to do it. Now the biggest challenges have been, I have 2 small ones at home with me. I have an 18-month-old and a 3-year-old. So they are constantly changing, and they're, you get to this level of, okay, when my youngest was an infant, when she was first born, we were trying to navigate, what's this going to look like for your business, for my business. And once she kind of got to a more independent level, I was like, oh, great, we have arrived. Like, we're good. But, there's going to be another change right around the corner, and, just juggling life, trying to find what is the best for me, for my clients, for our family, things like that. So I'd say those are the 2 big ones right now.
Do you have any off the top of your head, like any pro tips on life balance stuff? Like anything that you've found that's made things like 1% easier?
The first, and it's very hard to do, but the first is get organized as you can. That would be my first thing, is to get as organized as you can. And for the people who, don't have kids or whatever, then great, you're a step ahead of those of us who are working from home parents. But for those of you who are working from home parents, I would say just learn to accept that, things are going to change. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be how you have set in your head. And you just kind of have to roll with it and find, to throw in what we were talking about, the theme there, like find your priority, find what is the most important thing, for you and for them at the time. So I would say, that would, I've only been a parent for 3 years. So I feel like, it's gone so fast. So in my head, I'm like, I'm still new to all this. What do I know? But it is the best I could say, because as soon as you're like, okay, I am definitely partly type A, where I was like, okay, I have this, and I'm going to plan this out. And you can't, sometimes it just does not happen that way. And you just have to be okay with it. So, and find people who are going to support you. So, I have an amazing husband who has been super supportive during this. My mom and my husband's mom, my mother-in-law, have been great with helping watch the kids with stuff. And then finding clients who are flexible with this. Like, I would not be able to do any of this if I had clients who, were not flexible with me. So that's another huge one. So
absolutely. And I think, like that would be something like you, listener, viewer, if, like working for yourself, like being like a service provider to other businesses, whether it's virtual assistants or like I do a lot of marketing stuff for other businesses now. When you are meeting with clients, asking them about that, like, is it more important to you to have everything like it's done by a certain time on a certain day every single week, like, without fail? how much flexibility do you have? Or like me, do you not care as long as it gets done around the due date? But, because like it's so true, especially because Trisha and I are in different times. So, like, I don't think I've ever been like very, at least with you and my sister, I've never been very like deadline.
No.
With myself, I have. But, like, I think just like going into business for yourself, you also kind of have to learn to have that flexibility with your own self. And things most likely are going to take twice as long as you think they are. That's one of the biggest like helpful things that I've given myself is, particularly with websites. Like, I know if I like chain myself to a desk, I could make an entire website in one day if I really wanted to. Realistically, that's probably not going to happen. So like, I give myself extended periods of time and set expectations with the people that I work with, or at least I try. So then that way, like, you're not putting a ton of extra pressure on yourself. That's another thing. I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like there's never like external pressure. Like, all the stress and pressure that I feel is completely self-imposed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 100%. I mean, from from the perspective of work and from the perspective of life, it's been completely me of being like, I have to get this done. And it's never been my clients who are like, hey, let's get this done now. And even from home life where I'm like trying to balance everything, it's never been my husband being like, yo, like, did you clean this yet? Did you cook this yet? Like, it's never been any of that. And it's just literally been my own self, but, which is a huge blessing. But at the same time, it's also a little bit of why I went into business for myself. You know, part of the reason I don't have that external pressure of productivity and, all this other stuff. Like, I have this freedom, which is very nice, So as long as you can keep yourself accountable, like, I mean, we might be doing a little bit too much self-critiquing to ourselves, but you have to have some aspect of it because you're running a business, but it is nice not to have all that external pressure as well. So my stress level has been a lot better.
Good. That's so good.
Since I left PT world right now. So
I know. I feel like for me, I'm definitely like still stressed, as you know, but it's a lot different than like the stress that you're under in the clinic or the hospital or wherever you are. Because like a lot of it is like you're doing stuff that, either you like you're passionate about like doing it, you enjoy it, or you're very much in control of where your time is going. So like it is still stressful, but also not too much. So another question that yes, exactly. Another question that I have for you, which I kind of know, but also kind of don't know. Can you tell us a little bit more about the other clients that you have, the other businesses that you currently work with, you have worked with, for like options, example?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm trying to keep in the healthcare realm. So obviously, am I just listing like who I'm working for or like what types of things I'm doing with them as well?
Yes, both.
So for Morgan, like she mentioned, I am kind of managing some Facebook stuff for her in the groups. I am handling the production of her content. So, the blogs, the podcasts, those types of things go up. So that's a little bit of, end of the month finances. We're kind of checking things off. One of my other clients is a company that does SEO work for dentists, orthodontists, things like that. So my jobs are handling, we have somebody write up blog for them monthly. So I kind of look at the keywords for that and create topics. We send it off to somebody, they write it up, and I load it up on each person's either Wix or WordPress, whatever it is, and kind of try and make it score the best score possible to get it up there. And I'm also creating Google My Business graphics and trying to get that up monthly for them as well. And then Morgan just got me in touch with Brandis recently. You guys met Brandis your first interview of all of this. And so kind of taking on a few similar tasks for Brandis of what I'm doing for you. So kind of the production stuff of some of her content, keeping up with kind of updating her CRM, things like that. But that's kind of within just my little business, but it could be anything. We started off just basic administration, stuff for you. But it can go like, you just can't even explain like how far it can go.
Mhm.
Literally, like the first Facebook group that I tell anybody is, I was like, go to Virtual Savvy, just because it's the one, at least that I found, that described things so well, of like, these are all the different things you possibly could do. Oh, by the way, there's more, like
Yeah.
anything you could think of, whatever. But those are just some basic things of what I do for a virtual assistant. And I think it's a little confusing to people at first, especially we were just talking about this, like my former coworkers, when I left, I was like, oh, I started a business. And they're like, oh, are you doing like private practice or something? I was like, oh, no, I'm a virtual assistant. Or they'll see like my business title, Patricia Miner, VA, and they think I work for like veterans or something,
Yeah.
like PT for veterans.
Yeah.
So explain to them of like, no, I'm not treating anybody, but I'm working with healthcare, but I literally can do whatever I want with them. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a little hard. It's just know, whoever's looking into virtual assistant, it's literally limitless. Like, I feel like I can't stress that enough.
Yeah. And I say this all the time too, but I feel like if I were to go back and start a business again, I would probably go down the VA route. Like I might still like treat people as well, but it is like there's just so many options. And I mean, I feel like some of the stuff that I do / we do, like for the people that we work with, it does kind of fall under that realm, even though it's more like marketing and that's what I advertise it as, like I'm still doing things for other businesses. And like that, I just wanted to mention as well, like being a virtual assistant, not only can you like be involved in a bunch of different areas in business, but I feel like there's also kind of a spectrum where like on one end, like you basically are just like another person who can like do stuff, business owners will always say like, I wish I could clone myself. And that's what you become.
Yeah.
You just read the instructions, do the thing for them. But then like on the other end, it's kind of being like more, I guess, like proactive and more of maybe even like an office manager, so to speak, where like you're more like watching the business and seeing everything that's going on and suggestions in ways that like things could work a lot better. Or maybe you are an assistant that helps with marketing in particular, or sales or whatever it is, and you just like, you specifically only do that. Like social media managers too is kind of like a sort of a VA as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's why I have my why of the business, like you said, kind of like, when people say, I wish I could clone myself, it for me, at least, it's for that purpose, so that you can go do exactly what it is that you've been wanting to do and not get bogged down by, all the other things. But yeah, it just depends on what you want to do with it. So like you said, like you can zero in on just one thing and just be exclusively marketing or whatever. But you get your chance to pick how specific or broad you want to be with it. So
yeah, absolutely. So I guess like maybe another thing, if somebody wanted to be a virtual assistant and, say they like picked a niche, whatever, they decided like what they want to do with it. Do you have any advice on how to be like a good virtual assistant or anything like that? Like, I don't know if that really makes sense, but.
So, I mean, the first thing I kind of try and think of is like what I would want. And for a good virtual assistant, I mean, don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, there have been plenty of times I feel like where I've come to you and been like, I don't know what this is. So like we either figure it out together, or, we've learned, you and I have both learned how the other learns well. So like, you create a Loom video if you wanted to show me something. Not only does it save us time, but like I can go back and look at something. So kind of figuring each other out. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And then, for me, it's like trying to anticipate what your needs would be. So we have had 2 years to kind of develop this relationship and get to know each other really well. And in that time, I feel like you really need to invest yourself in the client and say, okay, like I know Morgan pretty good now. I can anticipate what you're going to want, or I know your style of something. So like you said, like you're watching this business, I'm watching you do this. So, making suggestions, but obviously it's still your business. But if it's in the name of, improving your business and not being like, listen, I think what you're doing sucks, like it's never going to work. Which has never been the case. But if it's like, hey, I really think, I saw this on a Facebook group, really thought it got a good response, what do you think? At the end of the day, it's your business. You do what you want with it. And, so just trying to anticipate their needs. I think is an important piece as well. Yeah, I feel like I'm there are things that would probably come to me as we were doing a project or something, but yeah.
Yeah. No, I think I was just, like curious, like things that you've learned. I think you answered it, like how, I guess maybe like how to be effective. And, like you
Yeah.
said, like making a good relationship with whoever you're working with, what, comes into play no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I wanted to mention too, is, at least I feel like one of our best things that we have done is making a standard operating procedures manual.
Yeah.
Instead of like Trisha and I all the time, like instant messaging back and forth about how to do things, and like that information gets lost once it's used. Like we actually like started, it's in ClickUp, the platform that we're using, but essentially like a list of like all the routine tasks that could happen, whether they're things that happen on a daily basis, monthly, just as needed, but like how to do XYZ. And we've been taking those Loom videos that Trisha mentioned and we put them in there. So, like for example, maybe it's something like how to schedule an appointment for a client. And then like I make a video on how to do that. Then if I ask you, like, hey, Trisha, can you schedule an appointment for John Smith or whatever? She can be like, got it. 100% know what I'm doing. Open up the SOP and then read the instruction. And that's definitely, I think, like saved a lot of time. And, we might be bringing on an intern soon. And it also makes it really helpful if you are going to hire and bring more people in. They can really just hop in because you already have the instructions put there. So just wanted to put that out there. If you're going to be a VA and you are working with somebody who doesn't have an SOP manual, that could be something that you politely suggest because it will help a lot.
It will save a lot of time and headache for sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Well, let's see. Here's one thing. So if you are a therapy practice owner, like I know I have a very particular way of going about getting patients. If you want to be a VA, how do you get clients?
Oh, great question. And I feel like I kind of have an advantage here a bit because, there have been, sadly, when I look on some of these Facebook groups, there have been people who have been struggling for months trying to get clients. They've put themselves out there. They've responded to job ops and stuff like that and just haven't gotten things back. You literally fell into my lap.
Same,
within
probably.
weeks of me being like, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was awesome. But so my first game plan was to, just be present on these Facebook groups. And that was something huge where it was like, okay, I'm not just going to sit and, wait for someone to find me on Facebook because that's not going to work. It's not going to work at all if you just sit and wait. So I joined as many Facebook groups as I could manage on there, and just responded to people. If it was like, hey, what kind of niche do you guys do? Immediately went on there. And I think that's how you and I found each other. Now that I think more about it, was that I was just like, I'm a healthcare VA, and either you saw it or there was a discussion topic about it, and boom, you find somebody. For my second client, the one who I do SEO work with, it was a discussion you and I had about like, okay, I want to try and develop more clients. How do you suggest that? And one of the things that you said was just like, again, be present on social media, like throw a post up there. Let's see what happens. And I use my personal Facebook as also my business stuff. And I have a huge network in and of itself just because my husband's family is huge. So me putting one post on there, it got shared a ton of times. So it was super helpful to have people who were supportive with that. Just saying like, hey, I have spots open, this is what I do. And ironically, it was a family member who came to me and was like, hey, this is what our business is, come on board and stuff. And you just kind of start making this networking. But the biggest thing is, and I feel like you've brought this up too in past posts, of you have to be present. You have to make a mark somewhere. And I feel like, at least for me, because I'm not a good salesperson for myself. Like when you go to the gym and you talk to people, and like you said, like you have to know that it potentially could take time, but like you're talking to people and word gets around and stuff. That would be my nightmare. But to go on social media, it's a little bit easier. I'm finding I'm becoming more of an introvert as I get older. So it's at least a little bit easier for me on social media to just kind of create a post, make a graphic, do something that kind of shares what I'm doing. I started an Instagram. I have not been very good about it, but I started an Instagram, profile for my VA stuff, and just started, showing reasons of why I was doing it. Like, why did I start being a VA? I was doing it for my kids, and, just kind of behind the scenes stuff a little bit. So sharing yourself, being involved as much as you can, or as much as you want to be, because you get out of it what you put into it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of like what you're sharing with like being present and networking and talking to people, it like also just boils down to like you believing in yourself enough to be willing to like literally say, I am a virtual assistant in this case. I am a virtual assistant, or I own a virtual assistant business and I work with other business owners or whatever and help them with whatever they need. Even if you haven't gained a client yet, you have to like make that decision in your head and flip the switch that like, I own a business now. I'm a virtual assistant now. And, like I don't currently have anybody on my roster, but they're coming because they have to, because that's what I do.
That's what you need.
And I mean, the same thing with all the therapy stuff too. Like, I feel like that's a place where it can like kind of like make or break you when it comes to opening a business. If you don't make that decision to actively, become what you want to be and start acting like it, it makes it hard for other people to believe you too.
That was like when I was researching all the stuff for VA, and I was like, oh, I'm considering this. What are the steps that was literally one of the first things where it was like, just start telling people I am a virtual assistant. Like you're talking to people and they're like, oh, what do you do? Tell them you're a virtual assistant. Who cares if you don't have a client yet? Like just start it. And like you said, like you start believing that you're going to be doing this, people are going to, believe it as well. Not that it's not true, but it's, they feel that confidence as well and say, oh, okay. And pass along the information. So,
yeah, absolutely. And if it makes you feel any better too, like if you, want to be 100% truthful more, I guess, you can always say that like you are a virtual assistant and you're looking for your first client. And like people will understand that. Nobody's going to like look at you and laugh at you and be like, what is this person doing? They're if anybody says that, they're a crazy person, and it's okay. Just like don't even bother with them, but every single person,
people are positive about it.
They're going to be like, wow, cool. What does that mean?
Exactly.
So it's definitely a really great opportunity. And, I did want to point out as well, for people who are listening to this, you may or may not like have any concept of the wide world of being a VA, but there are lots of different options in terms of like who a business owner can hire and where they are. So like, for example, I know a few other business owners that I've met over the past few years who have hired virtual assistants overseas. And one of the biggest reasons that they do that is, well, two things that I have heard is one, the pay rate is a lot lower than in the US, which can be beneficial to a business if that's one of their biggest things that they're looking for is the lowest rate. Or like sometimes people will look for a VA in a particular time zone so that when work is being done, the times line up in some fashion that works best for the business.
You're almost always working.
Exactly. But I know for me, I was most comfortable with like somebody here in the States so that like, typically we could talk on a daily basis, even though we're hours apart and everything. But I also love the fact that you're also a physical therapist, and like, that's just so cool because even though like I have a bunch of stuff I do and like, it's not just practicing PT, like if you're looking for a VA and you are a therapist and hire somebody who is also a therapist or even like somebody with a healthcare background, you speak the same language immediately, which also helps with like getting going.
Absolutely.
So like, I was just going to say like, don't count yourself out if you're worried about like, oh, there's a bunch of other VAs that charge a bunch less than me. Like, that's fine, because
Mhm.
like, I know for me, I would rather hire somebody with a higher rate that I can speak to immediately, who knows what I want,
Yeah.
rather than somebody overseas. And that's my values, but other businesses might value like the pay rate more. So like,
Yeah.
totally okay.
Yeah, and that's been, I mean, even for one of my other clients, the one that we do SEO for, we have somebody, a third party person who's writing blogs for us, and you kind of have to figure out that value of, do you want to pay a little less, but they don't quite understand some of the dental and orthodontic lingo or whatever. And so we're almost at times kind of going back, reading over the blogs and trying to make sure that it makes sense, it's cohesive,
Mhm.
it actually fits into there. Or you find somebody who, we eventually found somebody who was in the States and kind of understood that a little bit better.
Mhm.
But it's been helpful for your business and even their business, where I'm not constantly having to look stuff up, because,
Yeah,
I've been in the
you already
healthcare world
know.
for a while now.
Yeah.
So, know what I'm reading.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like that just reminded me of like another worry that sometimes people have about like starting their own business of, well, I went to school for all this time, and, like if I am not a practicing therapist, then like it was a waste of time to go to school or whatever. But, if you haven't heard of the non-clinical fee, Meredith Caston, I believe is her name. She has tons of great information
Yeah.
on all the different ways that you can use your degree non-clinically. And being a virtual assistant for healthcare businesses is a perfect example.
Yeah.
You can still use your degree and your knowledge and all that you've gained, and you just apply it in a different way to still help patients.
Yeah. And I mean, even outside of my VA world, I'm still kind of tied to that PT world of, I've been either my friends' parents or my parents' friends. I've been helping lately with kind of walking them through if they're in rehab for something, because I have this flexibility, because I'm not doing my PT job and I have flexibility with my VA job. I can hop on a call and be part of a wellness meeting and kind of talk the family through, what just happened during that meeting, or what are you looking for the next step. So I am still using my PT degree. I'm still doing per diem every now and then as well.
Mhm.
So, I'm still involved with it. I'm still using it. And that's what works for me. But again, there's no shame, there's no guilt in, you spent all this time, going to school and, working for X amount of years or whatever. There's still plenty of things that you can do with that degree,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and remembering that like your degree is not your identity.
Yeah, absolutely. It comes out, it serves its purpose in one way or another, even if it's just you learned valuable lessons of how to treat other people, of how to, especially for the field that I was in and stuff, being subacute, a lot of it was mostly geriatrics, and it opens your eyes to a whole new world. And even if I'm not treating somebody, you treat people differently, you get a different perspective of it, and it doesn't just spill into your business, it spills into your life. But like you said, it's not, my degree isn't what makes or breaks me. So
yeah,
what you do with it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is a really good place to end on, and something to think about for everybody who's listening. I think you shared a ton of really great stuff with us tonight, Tricia, and I hope that it helps to broaden the horizons in a way for, if you are considering starting your own business. It doesn't have to be a practice, even though that's what I talk about. There are a lot of different things that you can do, and like the process to starting a business is always going to be very similar, but there's lots of options. So well, thank you so much for being here and for sharing all of this stuff. If any of our listeners or viewers have questions, where can they find you?
Good question. So I have my personal Facebook, like I said, is just Patricia Miner, so finding me probably through Morgan. You can find me on there. And then I have an Instagram that is Patricia Miner VA. Like I said, I really need to keep up on that. But yeah, I guess the best way to, if you had questions about virtual assistant, what can be done with it, just finding me on Facebook and, sending me a DM and, starting to talk about what your questions are and pointing you in the direction that you would need.
So. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And, everybody who is listening, thank you so much for being here and for checking this out. I hope it was helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
See ya.